Hello friends, I will talk about processing the image of globular cluster M13. This globular cluster was imaged at the Sky Photo Trip 13. The object is also called the Great Hercules cluster and is the finest globular in northern part of the heavens. The globular was shot with 400 focal length lens. It's not the ideal, but we still have a good image. The image that you see on your screen has been stacked from 50 light frames and dark and flat frames in Images Plus, and this is the result that we got after converting the FITS file into TIFF. And now I have opened the TIFF file in Photoshop. The globular cluster is over here, a little bit on one side, and the first step that I'm going to do is crop the image. So crop using original ratio. I'm just going to press shift and drag and center the globular cluster approximately and crop. The next step that I want to show you, if you zoom into the picture, M13 has a typical formation of stars in the center like an X. We will try to preserve this formation of stars. So the first step that we want to do with this image is stretch the image to reveal the outer portion of the globular. For that, I'm going to copy the image, copy the layer, and name it stretch 1. And I'm going to stretch in Photoshop using image adjustment and curves. So in this curves window, you can see the histogram is gathered towards the left, totally towards the left, and we are going to stretch the image bit by bit in 5 parts. So just move the select the lower part of the curve and move it towards left to brighten the image. And now we don't want the curve to go in such a high fashion. From the stretching point, it should go towards the top right in a straight line. So mark another point, and it should not go in an inverted curve like this one or a very high curve like this one. It should stay straight to the direction of the top right corner. And if you compare the upper layer with the lower, a little bit stretch has been obtained. I'm going to do this stretch 5 times. Image adjustments and curves. Stretch number 3. Image adjustment and curves, and move the curve slightly towards the left using the bottom part of the curve and make the curve straight, go straight towards the top right corner. You can see if I close off the intermediate layers, you can see the result. The globular cluster has brightened considerably. I'm going to do one last stretch. You can also see that the histogram has broadened a little bit. Alright, this is the last part, and the globular has come out very nicely, round stars. But I do see a little bit of red fringe around the brighter stars, and we're going to remove that. Now, if you if you compare the top layer and the bottom layer, you can see that the X formation has toned down a little bit. We would like to preserve the X formation, and for that the best X formation is shown in the bottom layer or maybe the layer just above it. But in the top layer, this X formation is somewhat lost. What we can do is select the top layer and use the eraser tool. Eraser tool is over here, and you can adjust the size of this eraser brush by using square brackets. And if you erase the center portion of the top layer, you can see that the bottom layer is getting revealed. If I switch off all the layers except the top one, you can see that this area is now transparent, and the lower part, lower layer is visible through this transparent hole. If you go in the bottom layer and not the bottom, one layer down, and you erase that layer also a little bit, you will see that there is a hole in the layer which I have named stretch 3 and the bottom portion. But this is not the ideal way to uh, mask an image and show the lower portion. So I'm going to go in the history panel and step back from all the eraser actions that I've made. I'm going to talk about masking the image, and here is an icon which looks like a washing machine. If you click on this and stretch 4 layer is selected, if you click on this icon, a mask will be added to this layer. If I press Alt on the keyboard and click on this, you can see that this is a mask which is at the moment absolutely white. That means no mask is being applied. And you can see that at the moment the layer is selected, and if I click on the mask is selected. So you can take the brush tool using B. This is a brush tool, and the brush is at the moment of this size. You can increase the size by pressing the right square bracket and decrease the size of this brush using the left square bracket. You can also control the hardness of the brush by this slider over here, and you can also control the size. Since the mask is selected, if I take the black color over here, default colors black and white, if I paint the mask, you will see that the lower layer is being revealed. So if I just click, you can easily see that the top layer has now a transparent hole. If I go in the mask, you will see that there is a small black dot which I painted on the mask, and this actually is producing the transparent area. This is also not the ideal way to mask a brighter portion of the globular or any other nebula. So in the history panel, I'm going to step back. What I'm going to do is click on the layer and select all of the image by pressing Ctrl A, and copy all of the image by pressing Ctrl C, and then I will go in the mask by pressing Alt key and clicking on the mask, and here I will paste the entire image. This is the entire image in black and white, and now I am going to invert the image by pressing Ctrl I. So now here is a globular cluster and several stars. What we don't want is the stars to be transparent. So what I'm going to do is go in filter, noise, and dust and scratches and remove all these stars. So a radius of 10 pixels. You can play around with the radius and see if any star is there. If I make the radius 6, this fat star does not get. So you can see over here that now the star is, this particular star over here is blurred, and I press OK and I go to the layer, and then I see that this area has become transparent, but the transparency is exactly in the shape of the globular cluster because the mask that we created is an exact replica of the image itself. So we have a wonderful mask. If I go zoom into the image, and similar mask we are going to prepare for the other two layers. So I click on the stretch 3 layer and click on the this icon which creates a mask, and Control A and Control C, and go in the mask using Alt key and Control V to paste the image on the mask. And invert the mask and blur it using filter, noise, dust and scratches. Go in the layer named as stretch 2, make a mask, select all of the image and copy it. Go in the mask and paste the image and invert the image, and then remove the stars using filter, noise, dust and scratches. And now we are looking at an image which is showing a combination of all these 4 layers. So if we make an operation in the top layer, it will affect only the top layer, so it won't affect the entire image. So what I'm going to do is create a layer which is a merge of all these 4 layers by pressing Ctrl Shift Alt and E, and here is a blended layer created. Any operation that I do will be on this merged image. What I want to do next is remove the red fringe from the stars. Here you can see that all the stars, all the brighter stars have a slight red fringe. You can see in this particular star also. There is an action in the astronomy tools called select brighter stars, and I'm going to run that. All the brighter stars you can see are now selected. I'm going to increase the selection a little bit, expand the selection by 2 pixels. Now you can see that the area around the star is also selected. I'm going to press Ctrl H on the keyboard to hide this selection. Although the selection is still there, if I press Ctrl H again, the selection is still there, but the marching ants are not visible. Then I'm going to press Ctrl U to get the hue saturation tool and reduce the saturation of the reds. And now you can see that if I click on this preview button, this is the before. Notice this star over here. The red fringe has reduced quite a bit. Take a look at this star. This is before and after. The selection is still there, and I need to press Ctrl D to remove the selection. Copy the image again to make another layer, and now I'm going to show you something called the gradient exterminator filter. If I look at the whole image, the corner portions are darker and the central portion of the image is brighter. Let's check it out. In the info panel, you have the RGB values. If I hover my mouse in the corner of the image, you can see that the RGB values are 18, 22 and 20. If I go in the middle of the image, the RGB value has become 32, 33, which is brighter, and in the other corner also the image is slightly darker. We are going to remove this gradient across the image. So take the lasso tool and select the deep sky object using a feather of 20 pixels. Now I'm going to press Ctrl Shift I to invert the selection, and then go and use a filter called gradient exterminator. This is an extremely useful filter which is very useful in making deep sky images, and it is also useful in balancing the background color. So this filter is worked in the operation of this filter is in 2 steps. The first step is to select the deep sky object and then work on medium detail and low aggressiveness. The second step, deselect the image and take the magic wand tool, and using a tolerance of about 25, you click on the background of the image and entire background is now selected. Then you're going to apply the gradient exterminator. Second step, fine detail and medium aggressiveness will create a smooth gradient free background in this image. And now you can see the difference from the previous layer. This is the gradient X, which the gradient has been removed, and here it was. I also want to show you another filter which is called HLVG, and the acronym stands for Hasta La Vista Green. This filter is to remove the green color. This filter is available for free from Deep Sky Colors, and if you apply, there are the settings of this filter are strong, medium and weak, and if I apply the filter, the green cast that is usually found in a deep sky image is removed, although this particular image does not have much of a green cast. If you go in the info panel now, you can see that the RGB values at this background point are 29, 27, 26, and if you go, the center is slightly brighter, 30, 29 and 32, and on the other corner the values are RGB values are also almost equal. This is the work of uh, the gradient exterminator. Now if we zoom into the image, you can see that there is a lot of noise, and I am going to show you two methods to remove the noise. The first method is define by Nick Collection. This filter is available for free from Google, and it's one of the best filters to remove the noise from the background. So I'm going to apply this filter. It has an automatic setting. Automatic profile has been applied, and the filter has selected a area which contains no details but only noise. And in the bottom corner over here you have the before and after loop. So if you can go take your cursor to any part of the image, and in the bottom right loop you can see the before and after effect. I'm going to apply the filter and see the result. This filter define makes its own layer, so you don't have to make the layer yourself. So here you can see that the noise has been reduced. So if we click before, noisy, and after. Another method which I am going to use on the previous layer, duplicate this, and this method is available as an action in the astronomy tools, and it is called space noise reduction. If I cue this action on the layer which is one below the define, we will see what happens. So here is the noise reduction filter, action space noise reduction, and if I now put on the define noise reduction, we can compare. So both the actions are in this particular image are almost the same, but sometimes they produce quite a different result. So here is an image of M13, the finest globular cluster in the northern sky. Click that Sky Photo Trip 13. Thank you.